Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is FBC Radio Live. It's Friday, October 27th, 2023. And John, what a day October 27th is. I remember very vividly. I was riding in the Southwest Courtyard at UMass Amherst. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was just there. Take my word for it. But we were rioting because, it's the 19 years, John. 19-year anniversary of breaking the 86-year curse for the Red Sox. It's a pretty good night. Not gonna lie, it's a nice reminder of what was once a very very successful era of Boston sports. Those early 2000s, there was a lot of winning there.
Yeah, it sure was, right? So that World Series almost felt anticlimactic because coming back from 3 down against the Yankees, they won 4 straight to get to the World Series, and they swept the Cardinals. I'm convinced that the Red Sox played every day through like March of 2005. They'd never lose a game. They were just on that type of roll. And that, 8-9 day period is still one of the most incredible periods if you're a sports fan, because when they were down 3-0, they were embarrassed in game 3. It was 19-8. And you're like, okay, this is really bad, because the year before they lost in 7. So it's like they're going to get swept this year. And, they brought in Kurt Schilling and Keith Polk, and they looked like they were ready to overtake the Yankees. And then, 10 days later, you're celebrating the World Series. It's still one of the most remarkable stories. That and the Patriots Super Bowl run in 2001, that kind of kicked off this incredible, nearly 20-year run that the city had.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the Red Sox have since won 3 more World Series, so this whole idea of a curse, it seems like a distant memory, and it was. I mean, it's the last time that was brought up legitimately was nearly 20 years ago as a legit thing. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I was a freshman at UMass, so yeah. Draw your conclusions. I was having a hell of a time. Let's just put it that way. I just turned 18 too, so.
I hope you had a hell of a time. If you're 18 and your baseball team just won the World Series, I was probably watching the game alone and was like, well, that was nice. Let me go to bed, because I had a restaurant that I owned, and I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning to get ready for. I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure tomorrow's going to be a fun day because everybody's going to come in celebrating.
Well, I happened to go to a school too that was almost equidistant from Boston to New York. It was a little bit further to New York. But you got a lot of kids from New York and New Jersey, Yankees fans. So it made it a little extra sweet because, well, in the middle of us celebrating, and, we were up on the 18th floor of one of the towers in the residential areas. And, of course, the moment as the games were getting close to being over, the elevators were packed because everyone was going downstairs. So that's, we actually started this during the Yankee series, every game comeback. Like they came back in game 4, won that game, and everyone started running downstairs. So it was a nice little tradition for 4, or actually 5 nights, because that was the thing. Kind of to your point, the ALCS was so dramatic, but certainly once you got through the first couple of games of the World Series, it was really just like we didn't even go downstairs and celebrate the first couple wins. I mean, you went back down on after game 4 and everything. But those first 3 wins, you were still kind of recovering from that ALCS and the intensity that was, that was there. It was pretty, it was pretty nuts, not going to lie. And then a couple months later, the Patriots won their 3rd Super Bowl. So that was a good first semester for me at UMass.
Yeah, without question. And you look at that Cardinals team was really good. There was a 104-win team. You had Pujols and Roland. Jim Edmonds in center field. I mean, that team was loaded, and the Red Sox just toyed with them in that World Series. I don't think anybody would have had a chance against that Red Sox team. They were just on such a roll.
Well, what you kind of saw that in Game 7 against the Yankees. I mean, what was it? It was the first inning that Johnny Damon hit the grand slam, and at that point you're like, all right, the game's over.
It was like a one-sided game until they decided to bring Pedro into the game, and the Yankees started to light him up. I'm like, they're not going to blow like an 8-run lead by just making sure Pedro can pitch in Game 7. I'm like, do they want him on the mound when they clinch this thing to make up for 2003? I'm like, let's not get a little crazy, because they had still never won anything in all of our lifetimes, but they won that game.
Well, and again, you have to think pre-2004 mentality with the Red Sox, and that is, well, they're going to they're bound to lose. Any matchup doesn't really matter. Eventually, they're going to blow it. And that was always the mentality. And hey, look, I mean, of course it was. I mean, that's what we had lived with my whole life. I know you didn't see the last World Series before 2004. I'm not going to age you that much.
I just missed it. 1918.
Yeah, just missed it.
You're just missed it by a few years.
Yeah, just
Actually,
a couple.
My dad didn't even see that. My dad was born in 1924.
Oh,
he
wow.
Didn't even see that. So, you had to go back to people were going to cemeteries to put Red Sox paraphernalia in their graves. So, people had never seen the Red Sox win the World Series.
Oh, people lived a lifetime, If
right?
you're born in 1920 and passed away before 2004, which, isn't a crazy thought, that's 84 years.
Right.
You missed all of it, and that was that.
My dad did. Yeah, he died in 1999. He never saw the Red Sox win the World Series. And I think maybe a lot of Italian Americans back then, especially in Boston, some of them were Yankee fans because the Yankees always had this connection with Italian Americans.
Oh, sure.
DiMaggio, Berra, and they won and they had swag and all of that stuff. And I always consider New York an Italian city and Boston an Irish city. So there were some Italian Americans that actually grew up even in Boston as Yankee fans. But no, it was a cool moment. It was just, you had to pinch yourself. And I'm not a Red Sox fan, but it was like, this is crazy. This is just, I'm so happy for diehard Red Sox fans to finally win their championship. And then, like you said, they've won 3 more since.
Yeah, and then, I mean, but it's been in between. It's been a lot of disappointment in last place finishes and bricks being sold, It's unfortunate. But anyways, last night, we came very, very close to watching an absolute stunner at the end of the game because, well, first of all, there is no such thing as pass interference when it comes to Hail Marys, and it's kind of silly, to be honest with you. The whole idea is just, I don't understand why they're just like, we're just going to throw out every rule when it comes to pass interference just because the quarterback corked back and threw an intentional Hail Mary to the end zone. Because last night, let's be honest, the Bucs got absolutely mugged in the end zone. Okay. Like you could have called 6 different things. I mean, hell, you could have probably called the penalty on the Buccaneers for offensive pass interference. I'm sure you could have found that. And again, you're sitting here saying like, okay, how is that even possible to happen? But even with all of that, it was really just a matter of where Chris Godwin's eyes were. And if he would have seen that ball, he could have probably caught that. And, given the 6-point difference, that's pretty much game, set, and match for the Buccaneers. And you're talking about the Bills, like, in a stunning loss. But no, this was kind of what I think we thought this was going to happen. I think I think the Bucs have kind of lost a little steam here. I mean, let's be honest. The game was a lot closer than score than what it was. The Bucs came down, scored late after the Bills kind of were like, all right, whatever, and it got exciting there at the end. But the reality of it was the Bills pretty much controlled most of this game. It wasn't their best game. They still got a lot of things to work out, but I think we've seen the best of the Buccaneers. I was surprised that they started out 3-1, but they've kind of come back to earth. They've had limited play from the quarterback, or just subpar play from the quarterback. The team itself is just kind of they are what they were before Tom Brady. They're a team that's full of talent. But right now, I don't think they're particularly coached well. I do think the offense has made a concerted effort to change its philosophy from a year ago. Unfortunately for them, it's a year too late because they should have done it last year and they would have been far more successful. But just like I said, my takeaway is essentially the Bucs are. This is who they are. They're a team that's probably not going to win too many more games this season. They'll stay competitive, and Baker Mayfield's going to give you a couple nice moments, assuming he's the quarterback for much of the rest of the season. But the reality of it is they're nothing more than probably like a 5-win team at the most. And the Bills, well, they did what they were supposed to do. They should have beaten the Buccaneers. Had they lost to the Buccaneers, then we're opening up a whole nother can of worms because, well, they've had a couple tough losses lately. In this case, they did come away with the win, and kind of like what you predicted, John. The reaction after the game was, "Oh, Josh Allen's, it's all good now." After 4 days of panic, it's all good because they beat the Buccaneers.
Well, this is what you get with the Bills, right? They're so up and down. When they look good, they look really good. And when they don't, they look like a middling team. And they do that all within one game. I mean, for 2.5 quarters last night, they looked like a really good team, right? A team that could be on the field with anyone. Kansas City, Cincinnati, Baltimore, whoever else you want to put up there in the AFC. And then the final, quarter and a half, they kind of took their foot off the gas. I think they had 5 straight series where they punted.
And they're not really good enough to do that. Like we've seen great teams.
Who is? No one is. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The great teams we've seen can do that because at that point they're up 31-6. They were up 24-10 at that time. That's not really enough in this NFL. Even though Tampa's not a high-powered offense, you can't let a team hang around to the point where they almost win the game on a Hail Mary.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like they don't have the we bring it up all the time. They don't have the equity to do that. To blow leads like that and make us still believe like they're an elite team. Could you look at Buffalo and you're like, what have you haven't done? You haven't proven to us that you can overcome something like that. So like the more these situations happen, it's like, yeah, good for Buffalo. They got a much needed win. They had to win this game. They couldn't lose back to back, and especially to the Patriots and then the Buccaneers. So, good for them for winning, but it's like there's nothing really there that inspires confidence in that win. I mean, you just kind of look at it, like you said, you were hoping to go out and see the Bills kind of dominate, and go out and just from start to finish, blow them out by like 3 touchdowns. Don't give them any sort of hope or life there at the end. And not only did they do that, I mean, they gave him a legitimate chance to win. I mean, really, like I said, it was just a matter of Chris Godwin turning around and looking up, and the ball might drop right into his hand. But yeah, I just, like I said, I mean, I'm not, not terribly impressed with the Bills yet. I wonder how they're going to be against really good teams, and that's the issue. The Buccaneers, I think, again, to Braden's point in the chat, the NFC South is just bad. There's not a single good team in that. I think Saints fans are already turning on Derek Carr, and good for them. It took them longer than Raiders fans, at least a segment of Raiders fans who defended Carr for years. I mean, Derek Carr is Derek Carr. I mean, we've kind of laughed and chuckled about him a lot on this show because it's like, well, good luck, Saints fans. Good for you. You got Derek Carr. Like, what do you expect to do? Compete? Like, no, of course not. And we're seeing that now. It's like he's a limited quarterback, that this division is full of very limited quarterbacks. And look, you can have all the talent in the world, John. And these teams, some of these teams have a lot of talent. The Buccaneers especially. I mean, we've heard it for the last few years. They were loaded. They were championship ready, John. They're a championship team. Well, you know what? They have a lot of the same roster that they did the last couple of years. They also have a lot of the same talent. People always refer to the talented Bucs. Well, they're talking Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and all those guys. Well, they were there in 2019. They were there in 2018. They were there in 2017, John. And guess what?
Well, they're also 6 years older now than they were then.
No, so but the point is, it's not
attrition with football players.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that like this supposed super team filled with talent was only really competitive when Brady was at quarterback, and that's not a knock on the talent that the Bucs have. I've said it over and over. Yes, they have talent. Mike Evans is a really good receiver. Chris Godwin is a really good receiver. But if you don't have the quarterback to run the offense, it's moot. And I think kind of like, we look back at, at the time, I mean, except for me, because I'm obviously a Brady honk, so or apologist in this case. So I looked at 2019 and said, look, I'm not looking at his performance and being concerned. I think it was more the situation around him. And I think, especially after the 2020 season and how we looked at it, I think most people, I don't want to say anti-Brady folk, but perhaps the ones that were a little bit more critical of his performance look back and said, wow, actually, in hindsight, I can't believe that 2019 team won 12 games. It's actually kind of remarkable. Where we were looking at it, and I say we, I mean everyone but me, of course. we were looking at it and saying, oh, well, he was having a down year. Well, I think you're going to look at last season for the Buccaneers and say, how the hell does this team even win 8 games, let alone make the playoffs? But, that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the difference between, well, having Tom Brady make up for a lot of your mistakes, and then the following year having a lot of those mistakes corrected. We talked about it yesterday. The play action usage, the turnovers on defense, things that the Bucs weren't doing last year, and much to my frustration, especially with the play action stuff. But they're doing this year. They just don't have a good enough quarterback to A, execute the play action consistently, and B, take advantage of the defensive turnovers. And again, like I said, you can have as many Mike Evans and Chris Godwins that you want, but it's just not going to do you well when you just don't have a quarterback to execute what you need to execute. And that's really the case for a lot of, like I said, a lot of these NFC South teams that just don't have good enough quarterback play and really don't have good enough coaching either.
I think Atlanta's the best team in the division. I picked them before the season starts. They don't have a quarterback either.
No,
so
exactly.
I guess if you just have 4 teams without a quarterback, and Bryce Young's a rookie, and there's a lot for him to learn. Maybe in a couple of years he'll be a top flight quarterback. We don't know. Obviously, Derek Carr.
But do you trust this Panthers organization right now? Certainly, based on how they handled the whole, or how that story that came out about the Bryce Young stuff and the CJ Stroud and all that. It's like at this point, I'm not going to put my money on the Panthers having some.
No, the owner's too involved.
Yeah, exactly.
He's too involved, David Tepper. He may get rid of Frank Reich after one season. And, he may throw a bundle of money at Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick wants to move on. Who knows what David Tepper's going to do? He's got endless supply of money, and he's too involved. That's what happens when the owner's a bit too involved and they start making radical changes from year to year to year and involved in deciding who the quarterback is. So, yeah, I think that Atlanta probably has the best team in the division if you take the quarterback out of it. Even Desmond Ritter's not that far behind like Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, and Bryce Young. He's the 4th best quarterback. It's like being the 4th best something in a less than impressive group. So maybe they get by with that. I think if Atlanta could get a quarterback, not necessarily at the trade deadline, because I think the one quarterback that could move at the trade deadline, Kirk Cousins. Now Minnesota's won 3 games, and you just don't see quarterback traded at the trade deadline.
No.
It just doesn't work. But in the offseason, I think if Atlanta can address that position, they could actually be the team to beat that division for a few years because they're pretty solid everywhere else.
Yeah, and again, but that's the that's the age old problem, John. It's like you got to solve the quarterback position, and that's again, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to push one of my agendas, and that is why I laugh when people say that wins are not a quarterback stat. Wins and losses are quarterback stats. Are they perfect every single time? Of course not. Just like any stat in this fun game we call football. But the reality of it is the biggest impact that your team can have is whether or not you have a competent quarterback. If you have a competent quarterback, you're going to win some football games, more football games than you lose. If you have an elite quarterback, well, guess what? You're going to compete for Super Bowls. And again, you might have a situation where a guy like Joe Flacco has a great playoff run. Yeah, you can accept that. Trent Dilfer played well enough with a great defense to win a Super Bowl. Sure. Unfortunately, Dan Marino didn't win a Super Bowl. Awesome. You're talking about 2 extremes. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, John, guess what? Someone brought this up yesterday. It's like, well, is Trent Dilfer better than Dan Marino? I'm like, no, Dan Marino had many more wins than Trent Dilfer. You're focusing just on that singular Super Bowl, which fortunately for Dan Marino, he didn't win one. But the point is like these quarterbacks have the biggest impact. You're seeing that with I think play across the board. I don't think there are a lot of great ones in the league right now. And you're seeing, I don't think too many great teams. I'd like to see the Bengals start to kind of, they've already won a couple games. Let's string it together and start playing a little bit more elite, because I think it gives a little bit more excitement in this league. Because again, I just don't think there are a lot of elite teams out there. We've talked about, excuse me, obviously Kansas City, Philadelphia, but the reality of it is there's really not too many. And now, Sam Darnold is going to be stepping in for Brock Purdy, and look, I mean, it's not a terrible downgrade. I think we've all been impressed with what Brock Purdy's doing, but we certainly have not dismissed what the situation is for him. And, maybe Sam Darnold takes it and runs with it. You never know. But right now it's like, okay, convince me that there's other elite teams out there except for like one or two, and I'd be surprised. So, all right. So let's it's Friday. We're running out of time. Let's run through these picks right now because I basically want to seal the fate for every team that I pick to win because that's essentially what's been happening every week now. It's just bad, John. It's bad. It's just bad. But nonetheless, we will still continue to pick them. So we will start in the NFC South or the Souths in general because we have the Houston Texans heading to Carolina. We were just talking about it. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. Well, I'll take the Texans in this one. I think that's a pretty easy choice. They're in a better situation. I like them even on the road against Carolina.
I'm calling for the upset special, Carolina to win outright.
Huh? There you go. Upset special. One of us will be wrong. Actually, no, they're going to tie, and then we'll both come in here with egg on our face. Anyways, Miami hosting New England, potentially without Tyreek Hill. This will be my quote unquote upset special. The Patriots did a pretty good job containing Hill the first time. They're coming off a pretty big win against Buffalo. This is kind of make or break for the Patriots season. They win this game, all of a sudden you might be able to convince yourself that they can go on a little run. If they lose, you can pretty much close the door on their playoff hopes. So give me the Patriots.
Miami completely different at home than they are on the road. I think they win, but I think it's closer than people expect. Right now, Miami's like a 10-point favorite. I think it'll be closer than that, but I think the Dolphins will find a way to win. Tua is 5-0 in his career against the Patriots.
Well, that's going to change then. That's going to change. So your New York Jets, John, because of Aaron Rodgers.
They are.
Yeah, you're New York Jets.
Offensive coordinator, yeah. Aaron Rodgers. Could be up for assistant coach of the year.
Right. Of course. Would this qualify him for MVP? If he was his prowess on the sidelines, Okay.
Sure.
Okay, fair enough.
Wide open this year, so why not?
Right. Well, you know what? Actually, to be honest with you, you can probably convince me of anything at this point when it comes to the MVP race, because it really is just like there isn't any real elite team. I don't think there's real clear front runner right now. But anyways, Jets at Giants. So basically Jets at Jets in New Jersey, right? Like it's silly. It's silly, but whatever. Nonetheless, I'll take the Jets on the road against the Giants.
Yeah, I just think that both defenses are playing well. Jets are coming off a bye week, which I think will make their offense a little bit sharper than it's been, and it's been getting better. I like the Jets comfortably over the Giants.
All right, next in a battle of two owners who desperately overcompensated with their massive stadiums. You have the Rams heading to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. I have the Rams keeping it close, but I do have the Cowboys winning this game, but I'm not really confident in it because the Rams are kind of a wild card each and every week.
Yeah, the Rams, have been right in these games. They have 3 wins. Even their losses have been close, whether it's to Pittsburgh or San Francisco. But I think Dallas at home off a bye week will be able to get the job done.
All right, next we have New Orleans at Indianapolis. I just spent about 10 minutes downing the NFC South and Derek Carr and this Saints team. So I'll take Indy at home.
This is a weird game, isn't it? I mean, who knows what could happen here? They're both unpredictable. They look good at moments and look bad at other moments. I still think New Orleans has a decent enough defense that maybe can contain Indianapolis's offense. So I'll take New Orleans on the road.
All right, next we have Green Bay hosting Minnesota. Like you mentioned earlier, Minnesota's won a couple of games in a row, and this is kind of make or break for them. A nice division win. I think it's coming. I think Minnesota's going to win this one. Not so much because of how I believe they're playing. I think it's just that the Packers they're having some growing pains right now, and I think Minnesota's going to be able to take advantage of that.
I'll take the Packers. Home team within the division. Minnesota coming off a huge Monday night win, so it's a short week for them. The Packers coming off the bye week have extra time to prepare for this, which might be dangerous considering the coaching staff's not all that good. But yeah, I think the Packers will find a way to win at home.
All right, next we have Atlanta heading to Tennessee. I took Tennessee just because they're at home. This is a team that could, especially if they lose this game and the trade deadline coming up, they could be sellers big time. But I think I think they'll be good enough to beat Atlanta at home this week.
What weird matchups this week, right? You got like intra-conference matchups between kind of middling teams, and it's like tough to pick these. I mean, this is one of those weeks you could go 10-0 or 0-10, right? Because it's just so unpredictable. These
Oh, don't
matchups.
worry, I know
I'll
what
take
I'm going. I know what I'm going.
Well, maybe we'll go 5-5. Go split it down the middle. I'll take the Falcons. I've been on them all year. They find the way to win games somehow, so I'll stick with them.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's true. They won again last week. So, Jacksonville at Pittsburgh. Depending on the week, this could be a great matchup. But these are two very inconsistent teams. Two teams that have different expectations. But I'll take the Jaguars in this one. But really flip a coin.
Yeah, I'll take Jacksonville as well. They have the better quarterback, and again, Pittsburgh does have that really good defense that can cause a lot of problems. But I think Jacksonville will be just good enough to win.
All right, Philadelphia at Washington. I'll take the Eagles. I mean, they're just better.
They are.
Yeah.
Yep.
I usually I give a little bit of credit for the divisional matchup, but I think this one they're gonna. I think they're gonna have a pretty comfortable win. So, all right, next we have Seattle hosting Cleveland. It's a mess in Cleveland right now with the whole Deshaun Watson thing. I'm going to take Seattle at home because, well, they've certainly surprised me this year, although Cleveland's defense is certainly surprising. So this could be a sneaky good matchup, but I'll take Seattle.
Yeah, I'll be with you on that one. Seattle home field advantage may just be the difference.
All right, next we have Kansas City at Denver. Didn't we just do this? Feels like just a couple weeks ago. I was like looking at it. I'm like, am I looking at an old sheet? But no, we have Kansas City playing their second matchup of the year against the Denver Broncos. Hopefully this is the one that does go the opposite of what I pick, and I'd actually enjoy it. But I'll take Kansas City in hopes that maybe this will inspire the Broncos to have the upset. But yeah, Kansas City.
Yeah, Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes has never lost to Denver, so I don't think he's going to start losing now.
Well, have you seen the Denver teams that he's had to play?
Oof. Well,
I mean, it's like
Brady played some bad Buffalo teams too, so I guess
they did.
Every division has a team that has
sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But when you have Denver, and then your biggest competition is the Brandon Staley Chargers. Yeah, it does become a little comical at times.
The Joe Philbin Dolphins.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, hey, there is some data out there, plenty of data that suggests that the AFC East was not the dumpster fire that people claim it was to be. Because if you take someone did this, and thank God for them, because I couldn't take the time to do this. But if you eliminate, say you take from 2001 to 2019 during the Patriots Brady run, you take the division winners out of the equation and look at the records, everyone who finished in first place. Because, of course, if you include the Patriots, well, of course, the AFC East is going to have a great overall record. Well, if you eliminate those top teams, well, guess what? The AFC East still has a really good record. They're actually kind of middle of the pack. There was a lot of other divisions out there that were a lot worse. The problem was they associated the quarterback with, and really it wasn't terrible. You know what I mean? Like, Chad Pennington was all right. I mean, you had some good quarterback playing there, but the reality of it was, it wasn't as bad as people.
Losman,
yeah, well,
DJ Manuel,
okay.
I can continue.
Yeah, I see what. Okay, whatever, John. You know what? Jason Taylor, Patrick Surtain.
Those are defensive guys.
Yeah, well, they were good. That's one of my.
The Patriots had trouble with Miami, like a lot of teams. Yeah. Miami had some defense. Zach Thomas. Yep. They had 2 Hall of Fame players on there. So they had good defenses. It's just the quarterback playing the division with Tom Brady, and then nothing else.
Yeah, right. Well, that exactly. I mean, look, that's the flaw in that. But at the same time, it's like it's silly to this whole idea that they I love the people that are like, oh, they got 6 easy wins. I'm like, do you know how many times I went 6-0 in the division? Like twice.
It was twice. Yeah. No. I used to maintain that as well. Yeah. The Patriots were 75% against everything, in the division, in the conference, outside the conference, at night, during the day. It was just every metric you could look at. They won 75 to 80% of their games. Even AFC Championship games, they were 10-3.
Yeah.
13 AFC Championship games. So it was just anything you could look at. And the only one thing was they had trouble in Denver, which the team has always had trouble in Denver, but Denver was darn good for many of those years too.
Exactly. I mean, we joke about Denver right now, but which has kind of got us on a little tangent. But they were a lot different in 2015 and before, as opposed to what they are now, which is kind of it's funny. Let's just put it that way. Anyways, back to the last few games, because we just have a few more to pick. And the Raiders, of course, the dreaded Raiders, John. Oh man, what a division the AFC West is. Cincinnati at San Francisco, a pretty intriguing matchup. Like I said before, Brock Purdy not going to play. I don't think he's officially been ruled out, but he just went into concussion protocol the other day. So I don't think any player has gone into concussion protocol and played the same week this year. So assume he's out. Sam Darnold's in. I like Cincinnati in this. They've won a couple games. I might have even picked them if San Francisco were healthy. But even on the road, I think it's going to be a tough matchup because San Francisco's defense, although struggled a little bit the last couple of weeks, is still a great unit. So I think it's going to be a real big test for Cincinnati. But I think they're going to pass it. So give me the Bengals.
I like Cincinnati. It's similar to the Green Bay Minnesota game. So Minnesota played San Francisco Monday night, so they both have short weeks, and they're playing teams that had a bye last week, which gives Cincinnati and Green Bay, I think, a pretty sizable advantage. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. All in on them. I have them winning the Super Bowl. They've kind of corrected the ship a little bit, righted the ship a little bit here the last couple of weeks, but this is going to be a tough test. But the Bengals, who can win on the road, that's what they've shown that through the last 2.5 years. They can go on the road and win some big games, and I think they do that on Sunday.
All right, next we have the Cardinals hosting the Ravens. I'll take the Ravens in this one. I mean, they've been playing some really good football. Lamar Jackson, you can argue, is an MVP candidate and all that. So give me Baltimore.
I'm with you on that one.
Perfect. I like that. Chargers hosting the Bears. I almost called them the Blackhawks, so I got hockey on my mind right now. But no, it's the Chicago Bears heading to LA. I like the Chargers in this one. No Justin Fields, obviously, I believe, and then of course, Chargers are just better. So give me the Chargers.
It's too early to flex out of the Sunday night game, right?
Yeah, so well,
you're stuck with Chargers and Bears. Yeah, I'll take the Chargers at home. I mean, they can't keep losing, can they? I mean, I guess the answer to that is yes, as they normally do. But I'll take the Chargers again. So Herbert's going to play, no Justin Fields, so that's a big advantage for the Chargers.
Someone on Twitter last night asked why Al Michaels sounded so down and depressed, and I'm like, you understand that he's been doing Thursday Night Football for weeks now? I would be too. Are you kidding me? Anyways, last
$1 million a game isn't too tough to
take. Well, that's it seems torturous. You got to really pain yourself to get through some of these games. Last but not least, Monday Night Football, Detroit hosting the Raiders. I got Detroit, even though they're coming off a pretty, Detroit. I don't know. I don't know what to think of Detroit. I do know what to think of the Raiders, and that is, well, they stink. So, yeah, give me the Lions.
Me too.
All right, look at that. All set, all done, finished. We picked them all. We got them all right somehow. I don't know how that works, but it works. So anyways, that's going to do it for us here today and for the week. We will be back Monday to kind of wrap everything up and kind of get it all, recapped and everything like that. If you happen to miss the game and you'd like to tune into us to hear our opinion, we will be here to do that. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you then.